It's where the Arab Spring began, but now Tunisia is gripped in a winter of political discontent and uncertainty. The Prime Minister resigned after failing to form a government acceptable to all. Can agreement still be reached between hostile factions, or is the concept of rule by consensus gone? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the programme. I'm Mike Hanna. Tunisia has been left without a functioning government following the resignation of Prime Minister Hamadi Jebali. He resigned after his own party, Ennahda, rejected a plan to form a technocrat or a political government. It's just the latest episode in a deepening political crisis in the country. And as Amel Boubekeur reports, Tunisians are growing increasingly frustrated with their leaders.
I vowed that if my initiative did not succeed, I would resign and step down from the leadership of this government. This is what I did when I met with the President of the Republic.
Hamadi Jebali's decision to walk away has thrown Tunisia's government into disarray at a critical time in the country's transition to democracy. His efforts to end a political standoff by forming a government of technocrats failed, rebuffed by members of his own party, Ennahda. It came a day after the assassination earlier this month of the secular opposition politician Shukri Belaid, an outspoken critic of the government and its religious leanings. His murder shocked Tunisia and led to mass protests aimed in part at the ruling Ennahda, to which Jebali belongs. But Belaid's killing was only the latest flashpoint in growing tensions between the government and its opponents.
We must win that confidence back, and this resignation is a step towards gaining back that confidence not only in the government but also in the political actors.
The crisis has hampered efforts to revitalize an economy still struggling more than 2 years on from the fall of longtime President Zain al-Abidine Ben Ali. Continued bickering and accusations of incompetence among ministers haven't helped. Unemployment is still rampant, especially among the youth who first took to the streets demanding change. A 10% inflation rate has sent prices skyrocketing, and many secular Tunisians blame the government for contributing to what they say is a new climate of intimidation by religious groups. Much will now depend on whether the government and opposition can find compromise. Tunisia's revolution inspired pro-democracy movements across the region. Many Tunisians have yet to see tangible gains, the so-called cradle of the Arab Spring creaking under the weight of its own high hopes. Amel Boubekeur, Inside Story.
Well, joining us now are our guests. In London, Yousra Ghannouchi. She's an international spokesperson for the Ennahda party. In Tunis, Ahmed Bouazi, co-founder of the Democratic Alliance. And here in our Doha studio, Amel Boubekeur. She's a visiting fellow at the Brookings Doha Centre and a specialist on North African affairs. Welcome to you all. Let's begin with Yousra Ghannouchi in London. Why is Ennahda so opposed to the concept of a technocratic government?
Ennahda believes this is not what the current transition in Tunisia needs. In fact, it believes the proposal is harmful to this transition because not only does it set a dangerous and bad precedent by ignoring election results of the first open and fair elections in Tunisia, but also such a government would lack the stability and effectiveness because it would lack the support of the major political parties and blocs in the elected Constituent Assembly, and because many Tunisians really believe that a technocratic government lacks accountability, and from our experience in the past, there are very few truly independent technocrats in Tunisia, as we've seen from the interim governments following the revolutions. Those who were, called technocrats were either involved with the previous regime or later joined political parties. So what Tunisia needs is more parties to be involved. We said this before the elections. We said this when we formed the first government, and we continue to say that it's not by keeping parties out of government that we will resolve the problems that we have and that we will achieve greater unity and a more stable government. It is by including more governments, more political parties, and we continue to be open to other political parties to join the government, and we believe the new government will include more parties than the governments we've had.
Well, Amel Boubekeur, in Tunis, your view on this repudiation of a technocratic or apolitical government?
Our party supported the proposal of Mr. Jebali because we know that in some 6 or 8 months we will have election, and if you have a lot of ministers that have their eye on the election, they will not work correctly to manage the government, and especially the economical level. So we supported him, and we wanted that Nahda will go with us, and the government will have the support of the whole constitutional assembly, and then we will go forward. But Nahda and what remains from the Congress for the Republic did not go behind Mr. Jebali, and so he resigned. And we hope that the next government will take this side of the management of the economy on account, and then we prefer that the next government will work only to prepare the election, and to prepare the election and not be candidates, and to work to manage the country.
Well, we'll get on to what we would expect from the next government, but I just want to go to Amel Boubekeur at this particular point. The whole idea of the technocratic government was, in a way, a form of compromise, an apparent attempt to actually create some kind of agreement, was it not?
Yeah, I think actually what the creative crisis is showing is really a question that was at the core of the constitution of the Troika from the beginning. Can we manage a transition that will be stable, that will be democratic and transparent, with having political actors that think that the future of their parties and their ideologies is more important than the future of democratic transitions and democratic institutions? We have a sudden emergence of democratic institutions without, I would say, a sudden emergence of a democratic way to govern or to make politics. The problem here is that really the actors of the Troika mainly failed to go beyond their presidential elections plans and to focus on the transition per se and to manage the transition altogether. And I would say that this is really showing the failure of the Troika system that has been costly not only to Nahda but also to his allies, because, for example, the CPR or Takatul, they have lost a lot of followers, they have lost a lot of members. Recently, the head of the CPR party has resigned, or is going to resign, because 3 of the ministers of this party refused to quit the government. So really the question now is, does actually the murder of Shukri Bel'id, has the murder changed things, and can we consider that we are still in the same conditions that participate to put the Troika in place, or shall we think about a new way to govern and a new role for Nahda and its allies?
Well, let's just at this point take a look at some of the main players in Tunisian politics. Firstly, Rachid Ghannouchi. He's the intellectual leader of Tunisia's Islamic-orientated Ennahda party. Ennahda is the most powerful force in Tunisian politics, but Ghannouchi says it's important for all parties to share power. Next up, President Monsef Marzouki. He heads the Congress for the Republic, a secular party in a ruling coalition troika with Ennahda and Atakatol movement. Opposition leader Beji Caid Essebsi heads the Nida Tunis party. A former interim prime minister, Essebsi has promised stability and growth, but critics say he's a remnant of the old regime. Now, the idea, it would appear, has been to create consensus among moderates. Is this concept now shattered, Amel Boubekeur?
Well, I think, again, the main problem is that the actors that are currently in power are not using democratic institutions that are available to them. We have seen the end of a dictatorship, for sure, but we may not have seen the end of a domination system. So, for example, when you see how politics is done and how politics is conducted not only by Nahda, but mainly, they are talking about taking the streets when they are in conflict with their partners or their opponents. They are talking about plots against Nahda. So they are not talking about solving conflicts, you know, around the table through democratic institutions.
Let's go to Yusra Ghanouchi in London at that particular point to answer that. Is Ennahda going back on its promise of consensus?
Yeah, I would say
let me just put that to Yusra Ghanouchi.
Ennahda's commitment to consensus building has been stated very clearly and has been demonstrated. I don't really understand the reference to dominance. It is the largest political party that must be recognized. It did achieve 40% of the vote. It did achieve more votes than the next 10 parties put together. That is not its fault. However, with those results, Ennahda has said from the beginning that it is willing to work with all parties, and it's invited all parties to join the government after the election. Some parties said that they want to be in the opposition, and that is their choice. However, two other parties joined, and although everyone knows that coalition governments are notoriously difficult to manage and require a great deal of compromise and patience, it has been a very positive experience for Tunisia, and we believe continues to be a model that we continue to believe in and we believe will be successful. What we see in Tunisia is normal. I don't really understand why one could refer negatively to either street protests or to negotiations or to the discussions happening. These are normal, and this is what happens in a democracy.
But what we are looking at the moment is a period in which this consensus which drove the political process appears to be absent. Your view on this, Amel Boubekeur, is there a diminution of the idea of consensus at the moment?
I think consensus is possible, but Nahda does not want only consensus. They want to have the power, since it considers that it's the first party in the Constitutional Assembly, so it has to have the majority of ministers belonging to Ennahda. The consensus means that we find a middle solution, an average solution where you have many ministers from even from Ennahda, but more going to manage the economy and to give answers to the revolution demands. For example, the wounded people, they are suffering until now, and they didn't have the health care they needed, and so there are problems of development. There are problems of jobless people, and Nahda, since they were more than 1 year ago in the power, they did not give the answers. They were more occupied to solve political problems and to have an eye on the next election.
But if I may just interject at that point, Amel Boubekeur, and go to Amel Boubekeur and put that particular point. We hear that that Ennahda must bear much of the responsibility for the lack of progress, for the lack of the promises to the people being met. Is that fair? Ennahda was part of a coalition government, is it not?
Well, I think that one of Nahda's most interesting success, actually, since the revolution, has been to have been able to remobilize people politically. I mean, a lot of people were very hopeful that things were going to change, and they went and they voted sincerely for Nahda. But since now, these people have not been reintegrated within institutions. They have been only used, as followers that are going to demonstrate that they support Nahda against the secular and etc. And that's the main problem. I mean, they have not been able to reintegrate Tunisians, if I can put it that way, as citizens, as real citizens. So, for example, it's like Nahda is fearing real politics. It's like Nahda is trying only to continue on its legitimate revolutionary legitimacy and fearing real politics and fearing to govern for real. As you said, I mean, the main tensions and conflicts that are occurring in Tunisia are not between secularists and Islamists. They are between the governing people and all these young people, these unemployed people who have not seen their situation improved. And for another interesting example that is showing how Nahda is like fearing the use of institutions democratically is also the issue of the possible or not possible reintegration of former RCD people, the people of the former Ben Ali's party. I mean, they say that they are against, and they kept the debate polarized between themselves and a party such as Nida Tunis, for example, but they refuse to use transitional justice as such in order to solve the issue. So.
Well, I'll put these points to Yousra Ghannouchi in a moment, but first let's just take a look at Ennahda itself, the main political party in Tunisia. It was formed in 1981 as the Islamic Tendency Movement. It was heavily influenced by the Muslim Brotherhood. It later changed its name to Ennahda, meaning Renaissance. Soon after, then-President Ben Ali banned it. But following the revolution, its leaders were released from prison, or others returned to Tunisia after decades in exile. And after establishing dominance in democratic elections, Ennahda became the senior partner, as we've heard, in a coalition government. But the criticisms that we heard there, Yousra Ghannouchi, is that Ennahda is failing to embrace the political democratic process and is failing to exercise clear direction in governance. Your response to those accusations?
Can I clarify a few misconceptions? Many have been repeating that Ennahda is dominating the government. Ennahda has less than 40% of the ministers in this government are from Ennahda. Another 30% are from the two other parties who together achieved 25% of the vote, and 30% are independent. So we should stop repeating things that actually, when you look at the figures and statistics, are not backed by reality. Second, I believe Ennahda has shown great commitment to the political process, although in fact, you know, the democratic process might enable it to dominate if it wished to do so. It continues to believe in the need for working with other parties, with as many parties as possible, and that's what it has shown. It has shown a great ability to compromise, and we have seen this in discussions within the Constituent Assembly on the role of religion, on the political system to be adopted in the future for Tunisia, and many other discussions. We have not, in fact, seen some of that spirit from other political parties. Thirdly, I agree with Mr. Bouazi on the focus on the economic challenges. However, to claim that the government has done nothing about these challenges is hugely unfair. Yes, this government has inherited huge problems that have accumulated over decades. However, it has had a remarkable success that is not mentioned in our media. The fact that after the economy contracted by 2% in 2011, which is normal after a revolution, we've seen a growth by 3% in 2012. The problem of unemployment is a huge problem and continues to be a problem, and will continue to be a problem because it needs great structural reforms that will take time. However, no one tells people that at the beginning of 2012 it was 18.9%, and now unemployment has fallen to 16.7%.
Well, indeed, these are statistics, Yousra Ghannouchi, that do show a remarkable change since the revolution itself. But I want to pick up one point and put it to Amel Boubekeur. The point that was made there, that Ennahda has been acting inclusively. It has attempted to involve as many political factions as possible, yet this has not always been reciprocated by political factions, in some political factions within Tunisia. Your view of that accusation from Ennahda itself?
Yes, that's right. Some parties and some leaders did not want to participate into this government, but the two parties that are participating with another, they are participating also in the failure. They could not replace, for example, the finance minister during 6 months because they did not. This ministry is a part of Takatel share, but Takatel could not replace him. And during 6 months, and we did not have a finance minister during 6 months. There are many problems, and also the fact that other parties are not participating. This is not helping to move forward in the economy or administration reforms. That's also right. But
well, let's just go to Amel Boubekeur, if I may, at that moment, Ahmed, and put that point to her. Is it a fair statement by Ennahda that not all are interested in forming a form of consensus, and that sometimes this is being unfairly reflected on Ennahda's inability to create a sense of national unity?
Well, I understand that Ennahda thinks that it's really unfair to be accused of not being efficient, but I would say that it's mainly because Ennahda presented itself as the solution to all Tunisia's problem at the very beginning. But we should also underline that these huge accusations of Ennahda, which are quite legitimate sometimes, are also hiding a willingness from other actors, and especially as well and not that efficient left, in order to hide their own failure and their own inabilities to present themselves or to propose anything or to offer anything to Tunisia beyond their role of political opponents or opponents to Ennahda. So I would say that really equally for Ennahda, for the left, it's time now to quit these post-dictatorial debates and to govern for real true institutions and to focus on the roadmap of Tunisian politics, about presidential election and consolidation of the assembly. I'm fearing that these debates between and these polarized debates between Ennahda and the left are just favoring parties such as Nida Tunis in the public debate.
Well, we're looking at a situation there of division, are we not? But let's get some reaction from Facebook at this particular point. Mohammed Shafiq says Jabali is a good leader, but he shouldn't dissolve the cabinet and give authority to non-elected technocrats. The efforts should be to strengthen judiciary and non-politicized security forces and follow the rule of law. Alexei Schiffman says democracy in poor countries is impossible. It's replaced by populism. New government will make the same mistake. It will start to repress the opposition. And Jerry Bouquet says the Islamists have only 40% of the vote. Why do the other parties let them dictate? Well, the danger here, though, would appear to be a deepening divide between the secular movements and the religious, which could create a whole new series of problems that to date have been largely avoided. Can this actually be avoided, Yusra Ghannouchi?
I do believe that is a division and polarization we should avoid at any cost, and we believe Tunisia has succeeded in avoiding that to a great extent. But we should continue to exercise the necessary openness and tolerance and responsibility and unity to avoid that. And for that, we believe the model of a government that brings together politicians from various parties, Islamists and secularists and leftists and liberals, is very important, and that's why we continue to be committed to this. I believe that sometimes in the media, this polarization is something that is often heard. However, on many issues, we have, even on the government itself or the proposal of Mr. Jabali, it is not opposed by Ennahda and supported by everybody else, as we sometimes hear in certain media. This is not the case. On many issues, each party takes its own stance, and we often find coalitions that include Islamists and secularists opposing an issue or supporting it. And we believe that we should all will avoid misrepresenting things or pushing things towards such a polarization.
Well, at that point, with a plea to end polarization, thanks to all my guests, Yusra Ghannouchi, Ahmed Bouazi, and Amel Boubekeur. And thank you for joining us on this edition of Inside Story. If you want to send us your feedback, email your thoughts to insidestory@aljazeera.net. Thanks again for watching. I'm Mike Hanna. Goodbye for now.